Today we look at the latest battery developments coming out of CATL in China. The world dives headfirst into full self-driving, and EVs offer a bright new future with thanks to the past. There's a lot to cover, including a glance at EV public charging prices, my latest choice for the virtual fantasy share portfolio. So let's get started. I'm Dave, this is Dave Takes It On. The world has suddenly dived right into full self-driving, and we in the UK are among the world leaders. We passed into law the Automated Vehicles Act on May the 20th last year, which looks to see the first autonomous vehicles on our roads in 2026. Yeah, that's next year. The Act was announced in a King's speech, and to quote the government, it puts Great Britain firmly at the forefront of self-driving technology, unlocking the potential of an industry estimated to be worth up to 42 billion and creating 38,000 more skilled jobs by 2035. End of quote. Now, I know there'll be an absolute deluge of neggies stating it's impossible, this will never happen, it's going to kill people. But two critical things you need to consider here. First, the government and the auto industry has already listened to all your negative opinions and long since rejected them in favour of actual hard data and actual opinions from experts. They believe it will happen and on time. Second, our government does not have to do anything at all. In fact, it will go so much better because the government does not have to do anything. Well, we all know how successful government projects have been. HS2, post office software, new nuclear power stations, and of course nobody dare mention all the Ministry of Defence debacles. All of them hugely delayed, vastly over budget, and many ended up scrapped as the only option. But the great news is that they've already done all they need to do by passing the law. The rest will be very quickly grabbed by the active players, those involved in full self-driving. Many countries around the world already have autonomous vehicles of one sort or another operating over many years very successfully. We have the Docklands Light Railway. China is probably one of the most advanced, with at least 19 major cities actively testing both cars and buses. They have a policy of simply, well, let's get on with it. And they now have more than 6 cities operating them, including Wuhan, with 500 driverless cars working, and Beijing, including 900 taxis working, and some buses and delivery vehicles. All the rest of the cities, they're in test. While many think it's totally unnecessary, after all, we all passed our driving tests and we've been driving for decades ever since, very successfully. Well, maybe an odd accident here or there. The autonomous industry is looking firmly at transport, both with buses and delivery lorries. Once again, let me beat you to the punch. Gridserve is already building out their electric freightway alongside their electric highway for electric heavy goods vehicles, EHGV. And that will be operational this year. In the US, Tesla has just announced its expansion plans with more than 46 megachargers capable of recharging one of their HGVs less than 30 minutes. Coincidentally, that is much longer than the time that a driver is forced to stop by law, which is mandated at 45 minutes every 4.5 hours. Oh, by the way, 4.5 hours flat out driving at 60 miles an hour, no slowing down. It's only 270 miles. Well, it's really interesting to note that no haulage company can go electric unless they can charge en route or at the destination or the departure point. And Tesla is already installing those even before their semi goes on sale later this year. He who offers a decent supercharging network at low prices will, well, you know the ending, they'll dominate the market. Once again, to answer the comments I know will be on their way, the Tesla Semi has a real-world range of 500 miles. They've released a time-lapse video of the whole thing, and it can add 70% back in 30 minutes. That being 350 miles. So in UK, you could drive for 270 miles, stop for your mandatory break, and leave with your battery very nearly full again for the rest of your shift. Well, in addition, in the US, where they're already in commercial use, the depot and the destinations already have mega chargers, and it takes longer than 30 minutes to load or unload these lorries. They are plugged in, of course, when loading and unloading. Well, Amazon, for one, has already gone EV, having invested heavily in Rivian. They're reported to have ordered 100,000 electric vans, and by all accounts, about 20,000 have already been delivered. With probably the best delivery network in the world, Jeff Bezos has seen that EV delivery vans easily outperform ICE vans in almost every respect, and also offer the prospect of autonomous driving one day. The UK average drivers are probably not a prime market for FSD in their EVs, although that market is not a negligible one. But think hire car companies. Currently, they have to manually drive their hire cars to where they're needed, and they require their staff to drop off cars to customers. That requires two drivers, one to drive the car, the other to follow and pick them up and take them back to the depot. Just imagine if the office staff could simply send their hire cars to where they're needed. No more going back to the depot, just order online, pay online, and at the allocated time, your car will arrive outside exactly where you need it when you need it. But EHGV is the holy grail. It has the smallest number of vehicles in any specific automotive sector, but it causes over a quarter of all the emissions in Europe. Plus, there is the cost. It is estimated that it costs half as much in fuel to run an EHGV than a diesel HGV. And with a tank size of about 400 or 500 litres, that is an enormous sum of money every trip. EHGV chargers are already in operation, even local to me. They're at the M61 Rivington services. Many more, with GridServe following, are likely to follow. Well, CATL is the world's largest battery manufacturer and logically one of the pioneers for battery development, so it's interesting to see what they have on the horizon. Well, a while back they announced the Shenzhen battery, which brought the LFP power density up very much closer to that of the original NMC batteries. Well, that's now old hat, and many EV drive around on these, but the second generation is now arriving, and that offers simply stunning features like 800 kilometre or 500 mile range and a peak charging rate of 1.3 megawatt. It's about 4 times faster than a traditional 350 kilowatt. And 12C, meaning 5-minute charging times. And for all you negative nerds out there, GridServe obviously believe they can get enough electricity and they won't have to build a power station alongside every single charger. Well, this is soon going to raise a real dilemma for the die-hard ICE drivers. You see, they've long stated that once EVs can do 1,000 miles on a single charge and then recharge in 5 minutes, they'll probably buy one. Well, you and I know they never really meant that. It was just a good excuse not to buy one right now. But once they appear in the showrooms, what will be the next excuse they cling to? We're going to rightly point out that 500 miles is not 1,000 miles. Correct. But that is exactly what CATL next development will do. Oh, okay, not quite. It's 1,500 kilometres, which is 932 miles. But that's as close as it gets, as close as it needs to be. And it now easily beats the range of most hybrids, relying mainly on petrol. It is their Freevoy dual power battery. This incorporates a dual battery since different chemistries offer different features. Some batteries offer great performance, while others offer fantastic range. They've simply combined the two into a dual battery and you get the best of both worlds. It also includes thermal runaway protection and thermal management on both of the cores to offer the ultimate in safety. In the range extension zone, the battery chemistry has done away with the traditional graphite for the negative electrode, and this allows for significantly higher energy capacity within the same space, while also increasing energy density. Oh, by the way, when they say range extender, do not get confused with the small petrol engines installed in some EVs to extend the range by using petrol. This range extender is just one part of the dual battery, and it's the bit that offers the huge range. The other bit offers the high performance. So faced with EVs coming onto the market this year and next that can charge in 5 minutes and can offer a 1,000-mile range, how many people will actually end up buying one? Well, yeah, I can see the caravanners most definitely will. Imagine towing your huge 6-berth twin-axle mobile home from home and still getting 500 miles range. That can take you from London to Inverness non-stop, but I bet you the driver will have to stop well before you get there. Well, at the other end of the spectrum, sodium-ion batteries have now developed to a point where they can actually be used in everyday EVs. When they were first developed, they were amazingly low power density and slow to give it out, making them ideally suitable to only tiny microcars that barely exceed 40 miles an hour. But they were amazingly cheap. Well, sodium is everywhere, and it's the main ingredient dissolved in seawater. So no more complicated recovery and refining factories. But they have now reached a point of parity with a power density of 175 watt-hours per kilogram, matching many of the LFP batteries being installed today. These are likely to offer about 300 miles of range, but be remarkably cheap to buy and still offer a life cycle of 10,000 charges. That represents a 3 million mile battery before it fails. Who then will ask about battery degradation? But there's more, because sodium does not mind the cold like lithium does. Lithium can offer a dramatic drop in range and available power under extreme cold conditions. That hasn't stopped the Norwegians. They've happily adopted them en masse. But when they're offered a battery that shrugs off the cold and gives the same range and the same power, well, it's claimed at 93% the same in the winter, it might be really interesting when the NMC or LFP battery-powered EVs come up for swapping, either from lease or because it's reached its end of finance deal. By the way, they also now pass with flying colours all the safety and fire tests. They crush them, they poke needles in, they drill and saw them, and the pesky sodium batteries just shrug it all off. Broken, yeah, but not overheating, and no sign whatsoever of even a tiny flicker of a fire. Well, happily, this standard has now been mandated by the Chinese government for all future EV batteries installed in EVs. So not really such a big deal after all. Now, if only they could stop petrol tanks exploding when petrol cars crash. Not going to happen. Well, the future's already here. All of these have already been launched to the media and are now for general release in 2025. The choice will soon be bewildering. There is so much happening in the battery world, and much of it is available in 2025. Which do you choose? Do you go for an ultra budget with okay performance with sodium ion, or maybe the dual battery with performance and incredible range? There is much more happening, but those will probably be available not until next year or the year after, so going to have to wait for those. When the petrol car came along in the 1880s, 1890s, the traditional horse industry must have laughed at first. Ha! You'll never get that up a mountain. What happens when it breaks down in the desert? But slowly it dawned on them that they were here to stay, and over time they began to take over. It was brutal, but it's also not that quick. Well, to this day, ranchers still use horses in certain locations and purposes, even though they probably have a 4x4 sat in front of the ranch. But the traditional industries must have thought the world was coming to an end. Mass unemployment as saddlers, stud farms, stables, animal feed merchants, farriers, many others all saw their businesses rapidly shrinking and a financial crisis looming. But look at what actually happened. See, the new method of transport began a meteoric rise, and industries sprang up to fill that demand. Oil production expanded and refined into petrol. That employed the masses. Eventually, car factories appeared, employing thousands and thousands of skilled workers. Petrol stations opened, roads were built, bridges were constructed, car dealers were created, and car service garages sprang up all over. Well, the rest of it you know. The automotive industry ended up as one of the largest global industries. Many people saw the arrival of the EV as a threat to that industry, But in reality, it's no such thing. The EV is still a car, just uses different components and runs on a different fuel. It's not a threat that the car was to the horse industry, which was a total paradigm shift, but it is different. I saw this recently with a number of new industries springing up everywhere. At the early stages was Redwood Industries. That is run today by an ex-Tesla director, and he saw that EVs would, sooner or later, reach the end of life, and he knew that while body panels can easily be melted down, that's already done, the batteries offered a new opportunity. Over 90% of the battery is recoverable, reusable or recyclable, and that is today a huge industry. In the UK, EV breakers have sprung up, specialising in the complicated technology of a modern EV and how to dismantle it safely and efficiently. Not that they're all falling apart, it's not that, but they do get involved in crashes and they can be written off. Formula E sprang up. For decades, the motorsport world was V8 and V12 engines screaming away with deafening roars, but today it's a much more muted V6 hybrid. Formula E offers fantastic performance and cutthroat racing with a whine instead of a roar. Well, to some it's better, it's the future. Whatever it is, the technology in Formula One hybrids and Formula E, batteries and motors, is rapidly being absorbed into the cars that you or I drive, not just EVs. Most cars no longer have a gear lever. They have a couple of the paddles operated by your fingers on the back of the steering wheel. And crash a car today and you've got a very high chance of walking away alive and possibly uninjured, thanks to the tremendous work from the engineers involved in keeping F1 drivers alive when they hit a wall at 200 miles an hour and succeed. It's staggering that many of them climb out of the car unaided under their own steam. Well, the EV industry is just finding its feet from the early days with a range of well under 100 miles. On a good day, the latest ones reach our shores and they can have 400 or 500 miles and soon 1,000-mile range. Performance is improving, safety is improving, aerodynamics are improving. But deep down, we all hanker for the good old days, that first car, that sports car that nearly killed us on many occasions. They remain a powerful draw. We do conveniently forget about all the days we spent under the bonnet or crawling under the car, trying to keep the darn thing going, bleeding the brakes in the front drive, trips around the scrapyard for cheap parts. Well, nostalgia is great, but the practicality, long since gone. None of us want to return to that. But a new industry has already sprung up with retrofits and replicas complete with that modern touch. See, my first car was a Mini Countryman. That's the estate version. And yeah, 6'3", I fitted in quite easily. And I drove that for many years. Recently, I saw an original Mini, the saloon, not the estate, and it was absolutely immaculate, as if it had just rolled off the production line. Turned out it was an EV. Alongside it was an old VW camper, the one with the split windscreen. I had one of those. I even did an engine change on one in my drive. That also is an EV now. Alongside that was a later version, not with the split windscreen, kitted out with the beds and a little mini kitchen. I took one of those with half a dozen mates all the way down to Biarritz in the 70s for a surfing safari. This one also, an EV. It is fascinating to discover that just about any old or classic car you grew up with can today be renovated to as new, but equipped with a good-sized battery and an electric motor. For a price, but it is being done. Well, then we found an enterprising company who discovered the old Austin name had actually passed out of trademark or copyright or function, whatever it was. So they actually bought the rights for it up, and they took an old, I think it's a 1928 model, and they made that electric. It is stunning, and they now have a waiting list. I have great hopes for the EV industry if only people saw the potential, not the threat. After all, there was a massive transformation from desktop computer with mouse, keyboard, screen, speakers, just down to one single device you could carry in one hand, the tablet. Why do we so easily accept that technology change, yet fight against EVs? See, I don't hear many people still operating their iPads with a mouse, keyboard and a separate screen. Well, just have a quick recap. The UK public charging scene is undergoing a transformation of its own. Just 2 years ago, the future was lots and lots more EV chargers in more and more locations, and they've been installed. Then the money men moved in, buying up or investing heavily in the CPOs who are installing and operating them, and their prices rose dramatically. Most of them now are in the 80 to 90 pence range. Their future looked rosy. Then Tesla came along and opened their extensive network to all, open to all, at about half the price, and the future no longer looks so rosy for the money men. It was a bit like having a supermarket being opened 50 yards away from your corner shop. Then the supermarkets themselves saw their opportunity and undercut the money men, as supermarkets do. That's what they do. Now we have the environmentalists who've discovered, well, you can build a wind or a solar farm, and it is a profitable business in itself, buying and selling electricity to and from the grid. They sell it to the grid when the price is high, store it when the price is low. But they can also sell some to themselves. And what they're doing now is building their own EV public chargers, plugging them in directly to a wind farm or a solar farm. They buy electricity direct from the turbines when they're turning, or the PV when they're working, or the batteries when they're not. And that means they can seriously undercut just about everyone. The EV charging world pricing is at a crossroads, and the supermarkets and environmentalists look set to win out very soon. We will benefit from genuinely green energy at cheap prices, rather than the foreseen inflated extortionate prices where the massive profits head directly into the pockets of the billionaires, the fat cats, the shareholders and the executives. I, for one, will not miss them when they discover they've backed the wrong horse. Have patience. It's not going to happen overnight. Well, we're on to the Fantasy Virtual EV share portfolio. I do need a new name for that. It's progressing. A second share has been added. We didn't buy one last week because we were away. Just to explain, it's a fantasy land. There's no money invested. Nobody should take my advice about how to invest their own money, and certainly not for real. This is for fun. It's like fantasy football. Share trading platforms offer the ability to run a virtual portfolio where no money is actually invested, but the shares that you do buy virtually behave exactly as if they were real. At one point being commented on with the eToro virtual portfolio I use, the virtual side is preset with $100,000 starting value. Cannot be changed. It's just preset. So sorry for that figure showing all the time. My virtual portfolio is set at £10,000 maximum investment, and week by week I will invest as I see fit based on what is happening in the EV world and what is likely to happen in the future. Well, this last week, as you've heard, the news has been dominated by two events featured here, full self-driving and eHGV. And in that market, one company has pinned its colours to offering both, and much besides. Tesla full self-driving is an option on every single car they've sold, and the new semi-factory, lorries to us, is finally reaching completion and ready to launch onto the world at large after extensive testing in the real world. In true tradition, they're also building out the mega charger network that are needed to enable the semis, lorries as we call them. So there is a quintuple whammy operating here. They have full self-driving, they have semi-production, they have a new eHGV mega charger network just starting up. They got the imminent delivery of the Model Y refresh later this summer, and quietly, along with many other companies, they have huge progress with their Optimus humanoid robot. If just one of these succeeds, the company is likely to see significant growth. If all of them succeed, it could skyrocket. It's well worth a virtual $2,000, or in English, that's 1,500 quid. Don't worry, I am keeping track pounds versus dollars. Now, for any of you who comment on the initial profit or loss showing, this virtual portfolio is to run for a whole year. What shares do today or tomorrow is largely irrelevant. It's a bit like your house. You can watch it, value goes up or down almost daily in some cases. But the only time the actual value is important is when you decide to sell it. This portfolio we're not selling for a year. Well, thanks very much for watching. I'm Dave.